Well, howdy, guys. Welcome back to the RedAss podcast. It is Monday, December 11th, and Roy just got done showing me some pretty darn cool golf balls.
Yeah, it's tailor made. Well, I mean, you know me. I'm like one, I'm a total child, and two, having been in the army, they're just golf balls, but the little logos all over them is the little green army plastic, plastic green army men,
Oh,
which
the
I had,
perfect one.
which I had like probably hundreds upon hundreds of those growing up.
Oh, yeah, didn't we all?
They're, they're like they're like the Legos of our generation. You walk around and some little sniper's sitting right next to your bed,
Mm-hmm.
takes you down with one step.
Yeah. Well, I'm Rob White, class 14.
And I'm Roy Mayfight, Texas class of 2015.
Yeah. So quick question. So whenever it came to the Army, man, there was always the tan ones and the green ones. Which one did you typically have as
Oh,
your quote
green.
unquote
No, they
good
got to
guys?
be green, man. They
You got
got
to
to be
be
green.
green.
Yeah, no, that's not even. Yeah, no, that's not even optional.
Not even. Yeah. So yeah, those were always the fun toys, right? Like we would get
Didn't
stuff
they
right.
come in bags of like 100 or something like
Yeah,
that? They like just came in ridiculous amounts.
yeah. I had one of those big buckets. I know. I probably had like 200-300 in that bucket. It's like good night, and yeah, all ranks, all everything. Yeah, all the fun stuff.
And you remember the dude with just had the binos, like he just had the
Yeah,
binoculars.
just had the
You're like,
binoculars.
where'd I put this guy on the battlefield?
Oh well,
Like
he's a spotter. You just set him off over the side here.
stick him up on the bookshelf, and that's pretty much he's done for the day. You don't need him the rest of the time.
It's not like he's gonna be shooting.
Nice,
He's
calling in artillery ideally.
Yeah, that's his idea. So yeah, it was a fun week. I know for us, I mean, holy cow. I'll touch on this for a minute. So we were in Vegas. We flew out Tuesday, didn't get back in until Friday evening. And normally a Vegas run for me, 3 days is normally more than enough. And being there for 4 days was definitely a bit strenuous for me.
It wears on you, man. Vegas just wears you down. Like once you're no longer like 22 years old, Vegas is it's a whole thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
and especially when you're doing kind of short shots like that, having to fly out, fly back, and you're doing it like midweek. So like you're having to make kind of your own fun because the weekend generally is when everything's popping in Vegas.
Right.
See, but then you get to a certain point in your age where you just go to Vegas and you just sit at a roulette table for like 8 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go out to eat and just gamble the whole time. Like I don't really go to shows in Vegas. We rarely even go to the Strip anymore because it's Vegas is in that rotation of bowling nationals, so it goes like Vegas, Reno, random. It's just a 5-year kind of rotation.
Right.
So thankfully we're back in Vegas this year. We went to Reno last year, and man, Reno is a hole.
Yeah, Reno's one of those goofy towns. At least with Vegas, we were staying at Resort World Casino, which is in the Hilton Tower. That was honestly very nice. One observation that Carson and I made, it's very clean there right now. Like there wasn't like a lot of homeless people on the stretch over there on the strip. There wasn't a whole hell of a lot of trash anywhere. It's like they really did do a good job cleaning up, and I'm not sure if that was just in response with the NFR getting ready to kick off or anything, but
Well, I'm sure it's got something to do with it. I mean, that's one of the bigger events in Vegas every year, to be honest. And even if you don't watch or follow, trust me, National Finals Rodeo is a large event.
Yeah, and it's actually really kind of funny. So, a lot of the our dealers that are running around at the tables, normally they're all black or whatever color scheme is going on at the various hotels. Almost every single hotel while we were there, people were wearing flannels or pearl snaps or button ups. Like, they're feeling it, feeling the spirit.
That's
Hey,
fine.
they may not be the most country people, but they understand what it means. It's
Well,
a
just
very
play
important
into it.
event. Yeah.
Hey, play to your crowd. That's if Vegas does one thing exceptionally well, it's playing to the crowd.
Oh yeah. And so it was a really cool experience. I mean, we got to play the community coffee kickoff party for 16 of the athletes that they sponsor. So Haley Kinsel, who's a fighting Texas Aggie, bad ass barrel racer, multi-time champion, phenomenal. She was there. Tough
You can talk to her?
No, did not get a chance to chat with her. She was in and
Oh yeah.
and well, at the end of the day, these poor people, they have so many things on their plate that aren't this party.
Well, they have to work. When you're talking about a sport like rodeo, like they've got to work a lot harder to make those advertising bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure during NFR week and especially the kickoff stuff, their slate is ridiculously full.
Oh yeah.
Not to mention they kind of got to focus on performing.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. So we ended up so when we went to this event, right? So it's they present our 16 candidates from this particular team. Then we move on to Tim Tebow, who spoke for about 45 minutes to an hour, somewhere in that range. And shockingly enough, listening to that guy for 45 minutes to an hour, and that's an absorbent amount of time that I will never get back. It was such a terrible speech. It was a terrible talk. And it's crazy to me because you would think Tim Tebow, longtime quarterback, commentator, he is such a nice, wonderful guy with great he's got great fundraising, he's got great charities, he's got all these really cool things going on. And we listened to him talk for about 30 minutes of that about why he ended up picking Florida over Alabama whenever he was in the initial phase. But one thing he did say that really held on to us a bit was the idea of being encouraged versus being inspired, where encouragement's more or less you being told, hey, you can do this, go do that. Whereas inspiration is something you get from somebody and it almost like tells you to go do that thing. So you find an inspiration and take that advantage to move on to the next phase of whatever you're working on. So that was something that was pretty neat. But
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter. He's got a lot of great messages, and like you said, he's got so much charity work that he does.
oh yeah,
He really, I mean, he's the person that he claims to be. He really is.
he really is.
Him and David Pollock is another great follow on Twitter.
For sure. So that was a cool experience. Enjoyed getting to play. Didn't end up playing for a ton of people because obviously you're in there for an hour and it's time to
Right.
go out and be social. Let's go gamble. Let's go do our thing. So we ended up mostly playing for the community coffee people, but they couldn't be happier with us and they appreciated what we brought to the table and excited to
Well,
get back out there next year for sure.
I mean, once you come on, present all your athletes, you have an hour long basically lecture from Tim Tebow. At that point, you've turned it into a miniature conference, and that's not what those people signed up for.
No, and it's the exact same thing that happened last year. So it's pretty clear that maybe down the line they run it back again. Maybe organization of how the event goes down, maybe set it up a little bit differently, just so that way you're maintaining people and not losing them. But like I said, Vegas was cool. Definitely a cool experience to have with my band, and excited to get back out there in a more full experience next time around. But
Well, yeah, and that's kind of that's more of a newish type thing for y'all, right?
yeah, it was the furthest west we've been, and knowing where we're trying to end up next year, we're trying to play out Arizona, potentially get some more shows up there in Vegas, Nevada area, but also work our way out towards California, Oregon in particular, because there's honestly a lot of really good country music, especially over on the eastern portions of like Washington and Oregon. Because there's a lot of country people on that side of the state. And between those guys and what's going on up in like Montana and Idaho, Bozeman, Montana was recently reviewed as one of the highest level places that appreciates our type of Texas country red dirt music. So like that whole region is really starting to pop off as another hub.
I was about to say ripe for the picking.
Yeah, ripe for the picking. So I mean, and you see it with obviously with all the Yellowstone stuff with a lot of the bands that are associated with that. I mean, a lot of people love the likes of Shane Smith and the Saints, Whiskey Myers, those type of guys up there. So if we can break more into that market, I mean, we had a lot of people that were excited for us to be in Vegas, and we've had people for years asking for us to come out to Arizona. So there's opportunity out there. We just got to get out there.
Well, it's fun, man.
It is fun. So we are moving on into but back into a little bit of football. We had Army Navy this past weekend.
Yeah. Well, I think what's on everybody's mind around here is still the DC search, right? So
yeah,
Klein, we touched on it I think a little bit, but Klein, Klein was made official after we put our podcast out last week. I love the hire. I do. The staff is slowly starting to fill out. Elko hiring a general manager
Yeah.
It's fantastic. He picked up another guy, I think last night, something like that. He's the guy's only job is
Mhm.
portal transfer recruiting.
Yeah.
So that's a massive add to a staff in today's college world and landscape.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's no sense in going back and beating a dead horse. What we didn't have is what we didn't have under the last coach. But now all I'm worried about is things getting made right.
Hmm.
And so it looks like he's filling it out bit by bit. Not to mention staying on the recruiting trail. Having some commits be like, no, I'm 100% locked in. After meeting with him, there's some people on the roster. There's some kids on the current roster that he knows, and then there's all the recruits that there's probably not a ton of them that he's met before.
Hmm.
But I'm sure he's familiar with because he was recruiting at Duke, right? And the
Yep.
names we're going after, everybody would love to go after because
Yeah.
with things having changed the way they did over the last few years, and include the move to the SEC. If you want to go back a decade,
Hmm.
the recruits that we need to be in for need to be the ones at the higher end of the table.
Right.
And so maybe those aren't quite the recruits that a place like Duke can land, but I'm sure he was like fully aware of these recruits. All the coaches and recruiting staffs out there are going to know, your ESPN top 300, your top 100, your top 500. Those guys, they're going to know who they are, right? And so now that he's here, he's able, first of all, because so many of those recruits are within the triangle of, Houston, DFW, and the San Antonio, Austin area.
Yeah.
The ability to go visit a ton of those recruits without having to, like, it's not that big of a trip, man. It's not. And
No.
then tack on being right next door to Louisiana. So he's obviously in more fertile recruiting grounds, and he understands that because he's recruited here.
No.
Um, but I think we all just still want a DC, and I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be. I've given up on even trying to guess,
Mhm.
because I don't think at any point did the name Colin Klein come out of my mouth, and here we
No.
are.
No.
So he's going to hire who he wants to hire, man. It's good to hear that he wants to focus on being a head coach and he wants a DC that'll call plays.
Yeah.
Not that he wouldn't be somehow involved with the defense, but more from a supervisory role, one would think. As a head coach should be. Even if you're a defensive head coach, you still want to know what's going on the offensive side of the ball. You don't want to show up on Saturday and just be completely surprised and blown away by what's happening. But I think we're seeing him embrace that role a little bit more of really being the true manager of the football team as a whole, as opposed to just doing defense or just doing offense. I just want a name, man, and maybe
Yeah.
there's a name that they're just hammering out the contract details. Maybe we're already there. So that's just. I think I'm just on board with everybody else. Like I want to hire. I just want a name, man.
Hmm.
And I'm going to trust in Elko to get whatever guy that he thinks is going to do, the best for us, and within kind of the parameters we're setting. We're not going to go out and spend $10 million on a DC.
No.
So
And
and some of the names that have been floated out are asinine. Like never was going to happen, not going to happen.
right. Well, especially with a lot of these names that people float for like lateral moves when they're already well set within wherever they're at. I mean, there's really not much to go off of with there. But with where we're at, with what we've got going for us, I mean, I have a feeling that Elko is going to get the right guy. He's going to wrap
Well,
in exactly who we need.
yeah, I mean, making a lateral move would be insane because there does come a point where these coaches aren't just interested in the money. And if you're a wildly successful DC, you may be eyeing a head coaching job. Like I'm
Hmm.
not going to take a lateral move to go to another Division One, Power Five school to do the
Right.
same thing I'm doing. So I think the names that originally got floated out there were probably just a little shooting the moon more than anything.
Hmm.
But but if he goes in the same route, kind of an up and comer, a hungry young guy, I don't care, man. I'm at the point now. I don't really care. I'm not going to sit here and break down a coordinator hire.
Hmm.
It's going to be a show me,
Yeah.
just go
And
out
I
there
think
and prove it.
I think that's a fair spot of where we're all at. I mean, we just want to see it. I'm a firm believer of faith with a lot of things, but obviously when it comes to football, faith is totally fine. But I do want to see a little bit of action. I do want to see a little bit of movement. I think everybody does.
I want to see results.
Yeah.
And so that's the nice thing. We've got an off season to not worry about it.
Yep.
Well, there will be people
bit.
that'll be worrying about this literally every day until we kick off.
Well, and it doesn't help that if you look at our schedule for next year, I mean, it is a tumultuous schedule. There's a lot of really cool things on there. Obviously, a lot of teams that we don't have to worry about until potentially, if we end up obviously at the end of the season making it all the way to the final. There might be some interesting names there, but I mean, as far as our normal schedule, we're not going to be dealing with Alabama or Georgia. In the regular season, we've got plenty of other things on our plate that we can worry about for the short term. But
Well, and I think that's really the beauty of it. I
mhm,
mean, if you're, I mean, we do have what some would refer to as a favorable schedule,
yeah, even
and
in
so
with a lot of home games against guys like Texas, guys like Notre Dame,
we got
and
Notre Dame, LSU, Missouri, and Texas at home.
yeah,
Going on the road, and boy, Auburn, Florida, Mississippi State, and South Carolina.
yeah,
None of those, instill any fear in you. Just kind of
no,
reading them off the page. Finally, finish up in Jerry's world next year.
yeah,
Um, so the schedule is favorable even for a rebuild,
yeah,
and which is kind of what this is, at least at this very moment.
right.
Now, we'll know a lot more about whether or not it's rebuilding or not when it comes to the decisions of both a handful of portal players and then
Mhm.
also, I think there might be one or two guys that are still on the fence about going to the NFL.
Yeah.
I think Shamar Turner is one of those guys. I think I, I would love to have him back,
Oh, for
but
sure. And
but
guys like Anais Smith, who would once again would love to have back, but understandable
yeah,
why you go to the next level. You've done everything you needed to do here, and we couldn't be happier for you. And we know you're going to do great at the next level. So, like at the end of the day, this is always a stop. This isn't a situation with like the NFL where you can just have a guy who's your franchise guy for years and years and years. You're going to lose those guys. That's just the natural part of college football.
well, and look, there are some guys that, quite frankly, they're in the portal, and that's okay. Like,
Hmm.
but again, we're in really the second talking season of the year, right?
Yep.
Because the main one's in the summer, but now with the portal and early signing day, there's another talking period. But this time it's without rankings. So
Right.
unless you're one of the four teams playing in the playoffs, yeah, honestly, you probably really don't even care about football at this point. Enough to just be completely deadlocked in. So it's more of a talking season. Yeah, some projections here and there, obviously with recruiting and the portal, but yeah, we're talking obviously a little bit more because of the coaching change, but
Hmm.
still, I mean, nothing we say right now is going to have any bearing on anything that occurs in 8 months.
No, and there's obviously there's gonna be a lot of moving parts between now and when we're rolling into the season next year, and
Yeah.
so plenty to speculate on, but
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's basketball season. We'll get to that
yeah.
in a second.
Oh yeah,
But a couple other notables over the weekend, at least for me, Army beat Navy.
yeah,
So they won the Commander in Chiefs trophy this year.
hmm,
It was, as always, not the greatest football game ever to watch because it's Army Navy, but it was still a ton of fun. It's always great to have some people over and just kind of enjoy the game. And so Army won, and then the Cowboys last night just absolutely dominated the Eagles. I thought that was one of the most encouraging performances I've seen out of a Dallas Cowboys football team in a long time.
yeah. No, they looked great, and frankly, obviously, we know how good the Eagles are. They're not a bad team, so that just further encourages obviously what's going on in Dallas as they move forward.
My my buddy Anton texted me this morning. He's a huge Eagles fan. He's
Mm.
like, dude, watching the Eagles offense the last couple of games, been watching Jimbo's offense. Brutal. But now the Cowboys look good and they look good in all phases.
Yeah, they did.
Literally all phases. The kicker out there
Hmm.
with 3 field goals from 50 or beyond. He hit the 60. I think that thing might have been good for damn near 70.
Well, yeah, they were saying, plenty of clearance from 60, which
Yeah.
that's always a good sign if you
Yeah.
got
It
a
was it
kicker.
was it was impressive, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, and you've got to do something pretty wild to impress me when you're a kicker. No offense.
yeah, that's one of them. Well, like I always quick aside. Anytime you have a guy that can like punt the ball from inside the 20 and down it inside the 10
Yeah.
anywhere, oh man, those
Some
are
of the
my
best
favorites.
that's why we loved watching Shane Leckler, man.
Yeah, there's
Um,
a reason why he's going to be the first Hall of Fame ballot kind of guy whenever he
yeah.
gets because I mean as a punter, you know.
They could consider renaming the Red Guy Award if they wanted to.
Oh, easy. Oh, no doubt.
But so yeah, fun weekend. as a whole, I'm tired. The day of Army Navy game is always exhausting for me, but we then got to turn around and watch basketball, which unfortunately, the A&M went out and took care of business midweek against DePaul, and you're kind of feeling good about things.
Yeah.
And then you go out and play Memphis, and you lose by 6, and it's not even that close.
No,
It,
it
it
wasn't.
wasn't. It wasn't 6 points close. It was a flurry of points right in the last like maybe 60 to 75 seconds to make it appear a little closer.
Yeah.
But you shoot 18% from behind the arc, and I mean, still having some issues with rotations on defense, and the understanding that if there's a guy like if there's a guy that you're not rotating too fast enough and he's burning you up because he's not missing,
Mm-hmm.
there's got to be some in-game adjustments, and that can't just come from the bench.
No.
Like, as a player, you should sit there and realize, like, this guy is torching us if we don't get out to him. So we've got to rotate faster, either it's on the backside or up at the top of the key. But these guys that kill you, and they kill you shot after shot after shot. And you have to realize that a lot of the guys that we've seen succeed against us, Virginia was another one. Florida Atlantic was another one.
Yeah.
It's not because these guys are the best shooters in the world, but the shots we're giving them is like shoot around practice.
Yeah. And it didn't help. I mean, I had a chance to actually be at the game, so I got to watch it yesterday, and it was very clear by the time we were getting there late in the second half. I mean, they were just starting to really be in the groove. Weren't really missing from three in particular. I guess Jones or whatever his name was. The kid was just absolutely on fire. And
21 in the first half.
Yep, 21 in the first half, and he just looked damn good doing it. So you do have to make those adjustments, and you have to start playing off those guys if you're going to have a shot in as we move on down the line, because Memphis is going to be one of those teams. If we're a tournament team, this is a team we're going to see.
Yeah, you just hope that Memphis plays well the rest of the year, because otherwise this is a bad loss.
It is.
I think Memphis will, based on what I saw, but I mean, now you're staring down the face of going to play Houston Cougars on Saturday.
Yeah.
In Houston. I mean, it's at the Toyota Center, but whatever.
Might as well be a home game. Yeah.
I think they were number one net. I think they're the number one net team in the country.
Yeah.
Like, this could get really ugly and really fast, because those are the kind of shooters that are that good.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they got to do this week between now and then, but finals are in your rear view.
Yep.
Now you're at school to play basketball. Yep.
And you really do need to start focusing on really locking down those three shooters, because man, we are in the modern day game of the three. And if you're sitting in a world where you're living and dying by it, and they are living by it, like you're seeing teams like Memphis and whatnot, you really have to do a better job of locking that down, because 2 or 3 here and there, it's a very different ball game.
Well, what's upsetting is the teams we're playing are living by it, and we're dying by it.
Yeah.
We can't hit the broadside of a barn right now. And I don't know what's going on. And some of it's shot selection, obviously, but some of it's just like, Boots being a little off yesterday. I don't have, like, I totally understand that, man. Coming off a respiratory issue, it was great to see him, dress back out, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Wade Taylor has got to try and remember whatever it is that made him Wade Taylor last year, and he needs to start doing a lot more of that. Yeah. And what I see out of him is just an inordinate amount of shots from behind the arc when he made his living at the free throw stripe last year.
Yeah.
He's not attacking the basket as much as usual. And we saw that when Boots was out, it's tough because it's a lot easier to double him, because there's a quality drop off when Boots isn't on the court. Mm-hmm. But you've still got to be able to figure it out. I mean, you're picked SEC Player of the Year preseason. You're picked one of the top guards in the country, and you're not playing like it. And it happens, and I get it. Like, I'm not sitting here calling him a bad player, but I don't know, whatever mojo he had last year, he seems to have lost it somehow. And I don't know, maybe it's just confidence or what, but we desperately need him to get into form if we're going to be anywhere what we hope to be this year.
Yeah, we definitely want to see that as we're getting ready to get into SEC play.
I'm scared to death of this Houston game.
Yeah, we got to see how things go with Houston. I mean, hopefully we do play with a little bit more spark, a little bit more passion, a little bit more drive.
They did look a little kind of lead-footed to an extent, but But
Yeah,
then on the flip side of things, Aggie women's basketball, they won 7 in a row.
they
They're
looked
rolling.
great. Joni Taylor got them rolling, and
They beat Kansas. Now, is Kansas a name and maybe not as good this year? Who knows?
maybe
Again, it's so early in the season, but you were able to beat Kansas. You're on a roll, and winning is contagious.
it is.
I mean, it's just that simple. So, you'd love to see for them to not only kind of stay on that roll, but because both of them are obviously getting into conference play. The men have what, 3 more games, including Houston, before conference play opens. I think we open with, I want to say LSU. I can't remember if it's here or there. I don't know, but we're getting really close to it being conference play.
Yeah.
The women have a ton of games left actually before conference. Now I'm kind of wondering if I got it wrong with the men, but
Let's see. Women
so you
coming
got
up.
Houston, HCU, Prairie View. Yeah, and then LSU. Yeah, so January 6th, it starts up.
Yep.
It's
And then,
conference play.
yep.
So
Fourth for the women on January 1st. On 4th, they're going to be at Georgia.
okay, so about the same timeline.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, we'll see. A&M was picked second preseason, on the men's side. I doubt they were picked very high on the women's side, but there's something to be said for winning games, and they're playing well. The women are playing well. It's kind of another one of those. Remember, we talked about this. The schedule isn't super loaded up with some of the most difficult non-conference games on the planet, right?
Right.
But sometimes they just have to kind of learn how to win.
Well, and you're seeing it here. I mean, I'm looking at the women's scores. I mean, the lowest amount of points they've had in a game so far was 63, and that was that Kansas win. And they did have anytime they've been over the 60-point mark, they won the game. The only game they lost, they were at 58, and they lost to Purdue. So they've been winning.
I'm fairly sure Purdue's gonna be pretty good.
No, yeah. So they've been producing well, and they've had multiple games where they're getting 80+ points. So you got to like where the girls are looking as far as their scoring, and even defensively. The last couple of games they've really held up. Like Robert Morris, he held them to 36. You like to see that. So couldn't be happier with the way the women are playing right now.
It's those do what you're supposed to do games.
Exactly.
You should get into the 80s and you should hold them around 40. That's just kind of how the women's game is, because there's a massive drop. Like there's a massive drop off in talent when you start talking about and you see it on the men's game too.
Sure.
And especially some of that's just because since you're in Texas, these midweeks and these non-conference, like you're playing North Texas and Corpus Christi, and you're playing Lamar and Robert Morris. You're playing stuff that's a lot, just stuff that's a lot closer to you.
Yeah.
And there's only so many kind of bigger programs in the state, but this isn't the year where she should have got out and scheduled Texas and scheduled Houston and scheduled Baylor. You're already going to have it tough enough in the SEC. So I like how she had the schedule set up, and obviously I love the results. That's 7 straight, and you hope that you can literally be at 10 straight heading into non-conference play. That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, and
judging by the schedule, they should.
They absolutely should. Next 3 games should be more than well within the wheelhouse of our ladies. I think they're going to do a great job heading into a conference play, and then we've got pretty tough stretch right out the gate there. You're going to be playing Georgia. You're going to be up against Georgia, Auburn, and then you're at LSU for that 3rd game.
It comes fast. It comes at you fast once you get to once you get to conference play. It's definitely a whole nother level in the SEC. So not that it's the best basketball conference in the land, but it's one of.
And you've got number 1 in there. You got number 7 in there right now. I mean, the fact of the matter is you have top level talent in this conference. So you've got to really play up to that level.
And you've got a club that Joni's still building. She is. That we understand that. Last year was just such a weird anomaly with all the injuries. And so some of these girls, even though they've been on the team, they haven't played with each other a ton because they were hurt.
Exactly.
And so that combined with the transfer stuff, I think she's got it moving in a great direction. And they already equaled their win total from last year. So there's that.
Exactly. Wait, and that's already a positive step, because I highly doubt we're going to go over for the rest of the season.
Yeah. I've got confidence in them. So, and we'll just kind of see, because obviously, you have the South Carolinas, you have the LSU. So you're going to have competition that, quite frankly, you'd be shocked if we pulled off those wins, kind of where the program is at in her kind of tenure. But maybe maybe this is the year where we start seeing more of, much better competition and beating some teams in the conference to put us to where that they're the teams we should be beating.
Mhm.
You know, start elevating your play to where you are above them as a program, or you are playing better than them. So it's exciting. I'm excited for women's basketball. I'm hesitant for men's. I think the game on Saturday could be really, really, really bad.
It could be.
And yeah, and so it's just and like we touched on, and I think even Boots said something about it in a post game press conference. There you go. There's the word, Troy.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, he just said, man, we didn't create enough energy. We didn't have enough energy. And that's crazy to me that you would have somebody like Memphis coming to town. Finals are over, so the place is going to be packed. And like you've got to be able to create that energy. That was such a weird statement to me. But if that's the case, then they better figure it out. They better figure it out in 7 days because they got to bring about as much energy as possible down in the Toyota Center if they want to even think about knocking off the number 3 team in the nation.
Yeah. That's not going to be that's definitely not going to be an easy deal, but
it'll damn near impossible if they keep rotating on defense the way they are.
Oh yeah. So
unless Houston wants to go out and shoot like me.
I am looking at the rather interesting bit. So it's like looking at our stats, like we're averaging more points a game than them. We're also giving up 20 more points a game than they are. So that tells you kind of where their brains at. Yeah. And, ooh, I don't know.
No, yeah, don't look at the box score for this game. Just don't. Just don't. Like, just hey, just put on your A&M gear and whoop and
I'm very scared. Yeah, I'm not excited.
Praying to God.
But that's fun.
But at the same time, maybe they'll embrace the challenge. You have an opportunity to go on the road to on the road-ish.
It's on the road.
For tournament purposes, it won't be considered a road game. And quite frankly, that's kind of fair though, because there's a ton of Aggies down in Houston, right?
There are. And
so that crowd could be very, very maroon down there.
Well, and there's 2 games going on there. That's the other thing to remember. Texas is playing LSU first. And then we are playing against Houston after that, same building. So it's going to be a lot of rotation, a lot of people that really don't like each other all in the same building. So it should be very interesting.
Yes, the rest of HPD's got some overtime slotted for Saturday.
All I know for sure is there's going to be plenty of Aggies watching that LSU Texas game looking for some Schadenfreude on the burnt orange side.
Oh, yeah. Well, and vice versa.
And vice versa. I wouldn't be shocked because whether they like to admit it or not, Texas fans do not like Texas A&M. They can keep on saying we don't care, but we know you do.
They totally don't care about us.
Yeah, we look how much we don't care because we have a infinitely longer thread over here on Orange Bloods than the one thread about Oklahoma. Our Texas thread is so much longer for A&M than it is for Oklahoma, but no, we don't care about A&M.
Well, and vice versa, neither do we, right?
Look, I will fully admit, screw Texas at all points. Did you see?
Maybe that's the difference. It's the admission of guilt.
And I admit my guilt. Now, if you look at just quick little aside, did you see what Casey Smith posted about championship weekend? Like saying, yes. Talking about how A&M fans, and I know I don't know if she was trying to make one point and then got flip-flopped, but saying that, Aggies, you look petty by pulling against Texas.
Yeah, it's not cute to root against Texas. And my friend, and then like she tried to walk it back like that. Yeah. I'll take it out of context. Like, no, homie. Like, look, I will root against Texas and I don't care. Like, that's it. That's
right. I mean, my general rule of thumb every week is I am pulling for Texas A&M and whoever the hell's playing Texas. That's literally how it goes every week. It doesn't matter if that's Oklahoma. It doesn't matter if it's Baylor. It doesn't matter if it's TCU. I don't care for any of those teams, but I much prefer them to win over Texas.
Well, and I think maybe if she tried to allude to this, and this is where I exist on this kind of spectrum of disliking Texas.
Sure.
I can fully admit that they're a good football team, and I can still absolutely not stand them.
Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. It's worse.
Nobody said they were bad.
No, it's worse that they're great right now because we've been able to trash on them for the last decade, basically, because they've been not very good. This last decade for Texas football historically has to probably be their worst because you're talking.
Not it's close.
It has to be close because if you look at the amount of sub 500 win seasons, the amount of not winning titles, they won one Big 12 title, and the previous one to that was 09.
Yeah.
So if we're talking, Yeah, if we're talking like at the end of the day, Texas had been bad. So us poking at them for being bad, sure. But now obviously they're good. We're still going to poke at them, but we poke at them because we don't like them.
Yeah.
You know.
And I will absolutely 100% root for whoever they're playing. It
Oh,
was
every day.
super easy to root for Oklahoma State. Had no problem whatsoever.
Oh yeah, not at all. I mean, I love the Pokes, and I feel bad that they lost, and I understand. Yeah, we're gonna have to play them in a bowl game, and that's great. But I think that also speaks to the level of talent if you consider the Big 12 versus the SEC. Because let's say, look, the number two
Yeah, where's
team,
Georgia going?
yeah, the number 2 team in the Big 12 is going to be taking on A&M in a bowl game.
In the Texas Bowl. The
In
number
the
2 team
Texas
in the
Bowl.
Big 12 is going to the Texas Bowl. The number 2 team in the SEC is going to the Sugar Bowl.
Yep, against Florida State, which will be
Yeah, right.
Man,
I will be interested to watch that game.
I am too. I really do hope Florida State comes out with a little bit of a fire under their ass. I pray they do. I don't want them to treat kind of the similar situations what we have with Georgia in the Sugar Bowl back in, I guess it would have been 2018 or whatever it was when they lost to Texas and Texas was back.
Yeah, yeah.
No, let's I don't want a half-assed team coming out like, oh well, we didn't make the playoff. Oh, this sucks.
Woe is me, and everybody's sitting out. Yeah,
no, go out there and go kick some ass.
But that's just what bowl season has become now, and that's
Yeah.
just something we're gonna have to embrace until they start getting rid of bowl games.
That's true, and I don't hate bowl games as a principle because I think it's really cool for a lot of the players, especially at like some of these smaller schools. You look at like New Mexico State, if you look at like a Marshall, if you look at whoever, these type of teams that they're not going to make a bowl game all the time, and it's always exciting when they do.
It's a great experience, and I get
Yeah.
it, but something's going to give at some point.
It
because
will.
especially as you see as many revolving door sponsors for these bowl games, that means sponsors decided that it wasn't fiscally responsible to sponsor a bowl game that's on December 17th, and it's against 2 teams that some people can't even point out on a map.
Right.
That kind of thing. So it's something's going to shift, and especially with the 12-game playoffs. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that works moving forward.
Yeah.
How much does it kind of kick the biggest bowls in the pants, like the New Year's Six? Now we're going to need all those sites to play these games.
Right.
So,
which I think was the natural evolution. I think, you take your New Year's 6 games and you make at least, 2 of them will be the semifinals, but the rest act kind of as a quarterfinal. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Right. But then think about how much even less value every single other bowl game has. You're either a playoff bowl or you're nobody gives a crap about you bowl. Yeah. And I totally get it from an athlete's point of view and the ability to, one, some of these teams, have the extra 10, 14 days of practice, whatever it is, being able to travel, getting the bowl swag, doing the whole bowl thing, bowl season. Like I get that it's fun, but the average college fan will rarely continue to spend time on things that have now been made to look even less important than they already were.
Well, and I had the excitement of bowl season because you would have the opportunity to play teams that you normally wouldn't have a shot to play. Like, we hardly ever schedule like ever Big Ten teams, or, occasionally an ACC team, occasionally a Pac-12 team, but we weren't really getting to see those type of matchups. And even today, within the bowl season, I mean, we've been paired now with Oklahoma State at the Texas Bowl a few times. So we're not seeing that level of variation.
Your bigger fan base is now bored with it.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. It's like we haven't played a Big Ten team since Northwestern in the Meineke Car Care Bowl, Texas Bowl back in 2011.
But you're going to start seeing that more often with the 12-team playoffs, and now it really even gives the importance of these other bowls. It gives them less ground to stand on as far as anybody giving a shit about them.
You're right.
Like that. That's what's going to happen, because on top of that, hopefully the way they line it up is some of these first round games will be on campus. So are you going to watch a first round playoff game that's on campus, or are you going to go watch, the Tax Slayer Bowl? Yeah. Actually, that's up the tier a little bit. The Idaho Potato Bowl.
Right. But I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think having that, but honestly, having the first round on campus, that's such a cool idea. The idea of like maybe a Penn State hosting like a snow game against somebody from down south that's not used to that crap. I think that's great. I want to see that. I want to see LSU go up to Penn State. I want to see so-and-so go wherever,
I don't want to see Penn State in the playoffs, so you lost me there.
I would rather not them be there, but
Well, yeah, no, I think it just, I don't know. And that discussion can go so many ways. I could be dead wrong, but quite frankly, it's just, it keeps this entire thing keeps moving closer and closer to there being a break off from the NCAA, which could be both a good and a bad thing.
yeah.
Um, So I don't know, man. It bugs me. I mean, I'll watch the A&M bowl game, but probably because there's nothing else on. If there was a better bowl game on, I'd probably at least be flipping back and forth. And these TV ratings is, the streaming service and all this stuff, those numbers matter. So when you have these bowl games where there's, like 20,000 people in the stands, because it's Tuesday afternoon at 2:30,
right,
during shopping/working season, in Fort Worth for the Armed Forces Bowl, like it's just. And the pageantry, and they don't ever draw back on the pageantry or the charity aspect of it or any events, and all that stuff costs money. And so when you're not pulling it at the gates and you're not getting good TV coverage, you're not getting good returns, there just comes a point where, like I said, these sponsors are just going to start chucking deuces. I mean, you're like, look, man, I mean, we were happy to be associated with it, but this is just such a poor investment of our time and money.
Yeah.
And that's where once you have, you expanded the playoffs and so you expanded the number of important bowls, because if you think that the orange or the sugar or the rose are important when they're not in the playoff, circuit right now, remember how many players pull out and don't play in this game, even though it's the Rose Bowl, it's the Sugar Bowl. If it's not part of the playoffs, these kids don't care. Yep. So the importance has already been, the shine has already been tarnished off of the bowl games outside of the playoffs. So expanding them obviously is going to help those top tier bowls, but I think it's going to destroy the lower tier bowls.
And it probably will. And
at least a good chunk of them. What do we have? 43 bowl games now?
Whatever it is, it's a stupid amount of bowl games. I love bowl season. I really do. I think it's really nice. The just from a consumer standpoint, one of my favorite things to do is be like, oh, cool. Hey, whatever football's on. It's just so much football. I love to watch football. I know it's not obviously the best thing for the players in the long run, of course, but maybe it's just a little selfish. I enjoy a little bit of football.
It's selfish. I mean, I used to love bowl seasons because every day I could turn football on.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I cared, I'd watch it. And if I didn't, it was nice background music.
Exactly. So unfortunately, that is the trend as we move towards this 12-team playoff next year. But
yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe the smaller bowls find a way to kind of to bolster their standing. And maybe if we lop off about 8 bowls, that's you're still in the mid 30s for bowls, man. That's still half of Division I getting a bowl game.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
It's a lot like the defensive coordinator, position announcement.
We'll see.
I just sat here and got wound up about it, and now that I'm done being wound up, it's still going to be the same thing, and it's going to happen on a timeline that's not mine, and I'm going to have no say in the decision.
Exactly. Just take my hands off the wheel because I'm not in charge. I'm just gonna sit back and watch and see how it goes.
Yeah. I'm just ready for the holidays, man. Ready to get my shopping done, ready to kind of start shutting stuff down for the year. That's about where I'm at. Just trying to slowly shut it down. I still got some stuff I got to do. Got a couple of incredibly active clients that I have to still need to work with and help them out. But other than that, it's just kind of that slowly teetering towards the end of the year kind of pace. But again, you're going to blink and it's going to be the day after Christmas. So,
yeah, we've hit our point where we're definitely in our slow period. We are just played the last show of the year, which was out there in Vegas. We have ourselves our company Christmas party on Thursday, which is fun. We're going to, while we're there, it's going to be a work day, not just a play day. One of the things we're doing is we're filming a bunch of videos for our upcoming singles. That'll be used for all sorts of levels of promotion, both for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're just going to have a lot of content for these first 2 singles that we have ready to go. So we're going to go out there and film for those, have our little Christmas party. We went ahead and got Carson a present. Don't tell him anything. And we're excited for him to get that, but yeah, it's been a great kind of wrap up for the year because the only other thing we have after that is 2 days in the studio to record 2 songs and we don't know what we're recording yet. So we got to figure out what we're recording.
Nice.
We're not entirely sure because these are the 2 free days we got because Drake kicked us out of the studio back in September. So we're excited that we have these in our pocket. We're ready to go.
Well, you got them back.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to get those recorded. But yeah, free studio days are never a bad deal. So we're excited to go take care of that. And then we are pretty much done until January 11th. And at that point, that's going to be a private party up in Fort Worth. Then we're heading out to Odessa because we're playing out at the Sand Hill Stock Show and Rodeo out there before we wrap up that weekend, coming all the way back to Houston to play House of Blues. So we're opening for Mike Ryan, who's one of our buddies, and so that'll be a lot of fun as we start leaning into next year. But we'll touch on all of that when we get a little bit closer.
Sounds good.
Along with the singles, because I think we have a date. I think it's January 19th for the first single, which will be Mrs. Lonely. I'm sure we'll tease that as we get a little bit closer. But
good.
That's all down the line.
Yep. I'm just ready to, I got some shopping I do this week.
Mm-hmm.
Shopping and some real estate stuff. But
that's always
all right.
fun.
Well, I guess going to wrap it up for today.
That'll wrap it up for today. I am Rob White. This is Roy May. We are the RedAss Podcast. Thank you so much for checking us out. Be sure to catch us again next week. Enjoy your shopping. Enjoy your holiday season. Gig 'em and beat the hell out of Houston.
Hopefully beat the hell out of Houston. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
All right.
All right. Gig 'em.